Hi, I'm Rick Stivers with YoungMartin'sReels, and today we're going to do something just a little bit different from what I usually do. I'm actually brought you out to the Cibolo Creek out here. I want you to get an opportunity to see what we're dealing with today. Our latest project is going to be this. This is a South Bend Spincast Model 700 reel, and if you notice, the handle is kind of in a sideways configuration, but notice that the line comes out of the side. This is a side spool type Spincast, and it works completely different from any that I've ever seen before. What this does is when you wind it, it winds pretty much as normal, but when you want to cast it, you put your thumb inside this hole right here and you back wind the handle 1/4 turn. When you've done that, now you've released the mechanism inside to allow the reel to be cast. You have free-flowing line. To stop that, you cock it back down and start to wind it back in. And that's the way it winds. You hold your thumb on it when you go to cast, hold it out, and you release the thumb just as you go to cast it. Alright, so we're going to go ahead. I've got an old, let's just go ahead and show you what I got here. This is out of my dad's collection here. Now I've got it tangled up because I dropped it. What we're going to fish with today is this flapjack lure. He's been around for a long time. It was very similar to the Lazy Ike, which was one of my dad's favorite lures in the early days. We're going to go ahead and fish him today. I doubt very seriously we're going to catch a fish out here on Cibolo Creek today, but this is a very heavily fished area. So, but let's go ahead. I want to show you how the reel works. Okay, so you wind it up where you want to be. Put your thumb inside the reel like this, back wind the handle 1/4 turn. You'll feel a positive lock, and back it up. Also, I'm a side caster. I'm not an overhead caster. I spent most of my early days fishing around stuff like this, so I don't cast overhanded. I cast sideways. But let's go ahead and put this to use. And as is often the case with a flapjack, he tangled up on me. Let's try it again. Now, I have a feeling this reel will be a lot more fun to fish once we've done our repair on it. It's very sluggish and kind of a little bit on the difficult side to wind in right now, but it hasn't been serviced in a long time. I found it in my dad's parts bin when I cleaned through his stuff, and we're gonna take it and I'll see you in the shop. Okay, we're back in the shop now with this reel, and what we're going to do is we're going to take it apart. I actually have two of these reels. They were found in the parts bin at my dad's shop, and this one was completely jammed up when I got it. And if you look right here, I'll bring it up close so you can see. Somebody had actually taken a screwdriver or punch or chisel or something trying to drive this cover off, okay, so that they could get it off. And in reality, they were going the wrong direction with it. So they finally, I guess, gave up on it, but they had managed to jam it on a lot. And so I'm going to tell you now to be careful with that, because it is easy to go the wrong direction. To take this off, it goes in the clockwise position. To put it on, it goes in the counterclockwise position. So by driving it this way, if they were taking a chisel or a screwdriver and trying to pry it this direction, all they were doing was tightening it more and more and jammed it up. Okay? So let's go ahead. We're going to turn this in the clockwise direction and slip the cover off. Next thing we're going to do is take the nut off of the rotor. And the rotor comes off. I'm going to show you on this other reel. The other reel has either a different spring or an unbroken spring. I'm not sure which I have there. But if you look at this one, see this retaining spring right here? It's got this little wheel or little ring right there. Well, if you've got it like that, all you have to do is grab a hold of one side, hold it, and pop that off, and it comes right off. This reel, the one we're getting ready to rebuild right now, doesn't have a ring like that. It's different. Oh, also, I'm going to recommend that you loosen the drag all the way up, because the drag presses against the bottom of this spool and holds tension against it. So if you loosen the drag all the way up, push down. On this one, we're going to have to slip a screwdriver or a knife into the slot, and yep, definitely going to have to use a knife because it's in there and it's in tight. But you can take a screwdriver and slip it in to the spring and lift the spring out. Don't bend it out of shape, just lift it up and out of the groove. Okay, with the spring out, now the spool will come off. Alright, and that opens all of this up for cleaning. The next thing we're going to do is take the back cover off. By taking the handle off, which you don't have to remove the handle to remove the back cover, but I want to, because we're going to take it all the way down. Next thing we're going to do is remove these two screws. And now the back cover comes off. With the back cover off, you can now remove the main gear. There's a washer that fits in there. Okay. And it really doesn't look too bad inside. That brings us down to here. And are we going to be able to take this apart? I don't know that there's any reason to. Well, let's clean it real good and take a good inspection on it and see if there's any need to take it any further down than that. Okay, I'm going to recommend that we leave that in there. We're going to clean it. Let's go ahead and remove the drag screw off to the side. And the drag assembly is permanently mounted inside here. It can't come out. So now, clean out the spider nest and let's clean it up real good. I would recommend trying to keep any lubricants off of the felt pad here for the drag. At this point, this center shaft is held in place by a snap ring. But it's such a tiny little snap ring that I don't have any tools capable of getting down in there and popping it out of there. So I'm going to leave it alone, because I'd end up doing more damage trying to take it out than if I left it alone. There is the gear is in excellent condition. There's no damage. Well, I see a little bit of grime. All right. Okay, I've decided I'm going to cannibalize parts from the other reel to make one good reel. Also, I wanted to point out to you how the inside of these rotors work. This is the mechanism inside that latches and unlatches for you to be able to cast by winding the handle back and forth. There's a cam that operates on the shaft here, this lever. That lever flipping through here is what moves this back and forth and activates and deactivates it. It is not spring loaded in any way. It's just physically operated by that lever on the main shaft. Okay? We're going to add a drop of oil to this rotor. Okay. Through the miracle of modern technology, it's going to appear to you as though I took it apart, cleaned it, and then quickly put it back together. That would be a lie. That is not what has happened here. During the brief encounter where the screen flashed, I'm back and we're going to assemble this reel for like the 4th time. I finally got it right, and things have to be aligned properly. One thing I did discover is that this ring right here, this is the one I took off, was going to cannibalize off of the other reel, and I have found that if you install this one on here on the spool, when you put it in, as the rotor turns around, this piece right here bangs against that loop. So either this is not the right ring that goes in here, or it was a design flaw to begin with, and they rectified it by installing the one without the loop. So we're going to use the one without the loop. We're going to leave the one with it off, and we're going to go ahead and assemble this now. All right, let's go start off. We're going to take our axle shaft. Axle shaft goes into the main gear. We're going to put just a little bit of grease on this main gear in order to hold this tension washer. We're going to slip that tension washer in there, and then we're going to take and add grease all the way around on all the teeth. Just on the teeth. It doesn't need it globbed all over everything else on the reel. We're going to put just grease on the teeth. Now, some people are content with just putting it in a few spots and letting the operation of the reel bring it around, but I kind of prefer making sure I see it on each and every tooth. All right, with that done, we're going to put just a drop of oil right here on this clicker, and then go ahead and install the main gear inside through the shaft. All right. With that installed, we're going to install the handle. And the reason we're going to put the handle on now is by doing so, it's going to hold this gear in place. Now make sure the handle is down over the piece it's made for it. And then hold it, tighten the nut. There we go. Good snug handle. Now we're going to install this gear onto here. We're going to put a little bit of grease onto this gear. This will be your pinion gear. A little bit of grease there. Line this up. Large gear goes on this side, small gear on that side. Slip it into place. Don't push it too hard up against the gear. If you do, it will cause it to bind. That was one of the things I found in the multiples of times that I took it apart and put it together, is that if you pushed it too far over to the side, it caused the gears to bind. So don't do that. It actually locked the reel completely up. And we're going to put just a little dab of grease on the tip of the screwdriver to hold the screw in place. Once you've got that in, go ahead and turn it. Make sure that it's free. I didn't do that the first time. I just assumed it was. Okay. With that in place, we're now ready to come over to the other side and install the rotor. We're going to put just a little bit of grease on the inside of the spool. Slide it into place. Okay, notice that it's spring loaded. Normally, I would think that you'd want to keep that free of oil and stuff, but because it is a felt, it's a drag washer. Go ahead and oil it, keep it flexible. Okay, got it in place, and we're ready to slip the ring on. Let's wipe off the excess grease first. Too much grease is not your friend. Okay, push down on the spool. Slip your ring over that post, and then it just slips right into place. That locks the spool in place so it can't move. Okay. Now you've got a little lubrication there, and when you tighten your drag down, that tightens it down there. This was your clicker on the other side that we lubricated. This is going to be your drag clicker. Okay, but now there is no anti-reverse on this reel, so it's never going to lock into place. All you'll ever have is a clicker. But it turns both directions all the time. Okay, so there's no lock for it. Next comes the rotor. Now the rotor has got this assembly in here. It slips back and forth. Comes over this way, and this disengages your string or line to wind it in. I've added 1 drop of oil here and a little bit of lubrication grease on the inside because this post right here rides inside there. Okay, and it slips back and forth, and that's what moves that in and out. There's no spring loading on this. This is your button for your clicker, for your drag right there. All right. Go ahead and slip it on. Make sure it goes all the way down. Once it's on, you can put your nut on. Turn the clicker off. Okay. Everything runs smooth. Okay. Notice right here. Watch right there and you'll see. Let me hold it in place. There's your line encounter coming in and out right there. Okay, notice that the spool, or sorry, the rotor does not lock into place. It actually rotates on this shaft. See here? It doesn't lock into place until it gets to the point where it catches on there and fully engages or disengages that. then it will lock into place right there. One way and the other way. Okay? There's your wind, there's your disengage. There's your wind, there's your disengage. Okay? Now, install your string through your cap, bring it down. Now this cap has got 3 different positions that it can be in. Okay? It allows you to move this hole to any of one of 3 locations. Okay? I prefer it in this location here. That allows me to use my thumb, but it can also be located here, which still allows the thumb, but it also could be the index finger. And then there's the final position, which is here, which is almost impossible to get your thumb up there, so it would almost have to be index finger. I prefer to use my thumb to operate it. So I back it down to this one. Oh, by the way, this position right here, every piece of literature I've seen that shows this fishing reel for sale has that hole in that position. I just don't prefer it that way. I'm going to use my thumb. I want it right there. Okay. There you go. When we reverse, it should go to here. When we wind, it should wind in, and it is, and it's doing it smooth, so much smoother than it did out of the lake. So there you go. There is the South Bend Spincast Model 700, and I think we're going to take it back to the lake and run it. Okay, it's later in the day, and here we are back out at the creek again, and the reel's rebuilt, so let's give it a try and see how it works. Forward cast, back it up, 1/4 turn. Okay, got a nice hunk of moss. What I'm finding with this reel is that the drag tends to be a little bit on the loose side, and you can physically watch the spool rotate as you're winding it in. I've tightened it down quite a bit. I don't want to tighten it down to the point where there's no drag whatsoever, but I might have to just to get it to function properly. But go ahead. All right, well, I think there's probably a reason why these were discontinued and there weren't that many of them to be found out in the world. It's not the greatest reel by any means. It's very awkward to operate. The drag is a little inadequate on it. I've got it tightened down all the way and it's still not that much of a drag. It is not by any stretch of the imagination one of the better reels. It's more of a collector's piece than it is a fishing piece. It's kind of fun and cool to take it out and try it out, but recommending as a daily, I don't think so. All right, thank you. All right, you saw that things kind of failed at the creek again, and there was a reason behind it. The drag was not setting in tight enough for you to be able to wind it in properly. As soon as there was any tension whatsoever, you were just spinning. And I came back, took it apart to find out what was wrong with it, and the blame is on me, not on the reel itself. So let's take it apart and I'll show you what happened. Alright, the blame was on me, and it was in two different configurations, two different things that I did wrong. Number one, when I assembled, I greased the inside of the spool. Number two, remember I told you earlier to keep this clean, and I thought about it, said no, if it's a drag wash, it functions the same as a drag washer, then no, you want it to be oiled. No. On this particular one, oiling it was the worst thing in the world to do, because then you couldn't squeeze it tight enough, because this isn't like a regular drag washer assembly. This is a spring-loaded bimetal plate, and it just couldn't get enough tension on it. So I cleaned up, took carburetor cleaner and cleaned the felt real good to get all the oil off of it. Cleaned the shaft, cleaned the inside of the spool, put it all back together. Let's do that real quick. Now we've got a good tight drag. Still can't get it tight enough to where it absolutely will not go at all. But it's pretty tight. And remember, this reel does not have an anti-reverse, so you have to hold the handle.